Okay, in this video we're going to discuss how we go about turning the animation that we created for a mechanical claw into a loopable sequence. Based on what we've done so far, if you look at the animation, again, it's going to pick up the box and put it the other place and go back to original position. But notice that when it comes back to the beginning, we're going to see the box kind of jumping back to the original position at this point. Because we didn't really set this up to be loopable footage. And again, if we look at the original project that I created here, when it gets to the end of the footage, it jumps back to the beginning and it's seamless because it ends just the way that it starts. So we need to figure out a way of kind of making the same thing here. Alright. Now, you shouldn't do this as an afterthought. This is something that you should plan out. And what I'm about to do is kind of like the idea that I had originally. So make sure that if you're gonna do loopable footage like this, make sure that this is not an afterthought. It's something that you planned out before. Okay. So the idea that I had is that basically we're gonna have this box kind of appear from below this kind of cylinders that I have here. All right. And as if it was kind of placed there by an elevator, and when it gets here it's going to be dropped down. Alright, so I'm going to be using not the cylinders that I created originally, but I'm actually going to be using these pipes. Alright, and again, the nice things about animating things is that you can actually animate the different attributes of the primitive and not just the translate, rotate, and scale and things like that. So the thing that I'm going to be animating in order to accomplish this is the thickness of my pipe here. Alright, so I'm going to replace these two surfaces with one of these. Alright, now another thing that you got to keep in mind, again, in Maya, if I do a duplicate of this second one is not going to have the same attributes as the original. In fact, you're not going to be able to go into the polypipe and be able to animate this attributes. So we're going to have to create a second one as well to be able to animate it. So I'm going to go here into my primitives and create another pipe. Alright. And basically I'm just going to copy the settings that I have for this one. Okay. All I need to copy is to translate white to make sure that it's actually sitting on the surface here, so that's fine. Alright, and then I'm just going to copy some of the attributes that I have here, like the radius and the height and stuff like that. Just to make sure they're identical. Alright, and the last thing is the thickness here. Alright, so again, I'm just going to replace these surfaces that I had there originally. I'm going to change them to this. Okay, so I'm going to be using the align tool for this. Make sure they're in the same position, or I could just kind of snap them into place. It doesn't really matter. As long as it looks like the box is kind of sitting on it, I think it's fine. And same on the other side. Okay, so that's going to work really well for now. Alright, so now what I'm about to do is not going to mess with the constraints at all. Okay, because this is animation that we're doing outside of the constraining within this the blend parenting that we did in this section right here. Okay, so anything that we do before and after is not really going to affect what we did here, because we already set keyframes for it to be in that position and for the constraint to start at this point. So any animation that I'm going to create right now, it's basically going to be based on anything that happens before. Again, to make this loopable, what I'm going to do is make at the beginning of the footage there isn't going to be a box here. It's just going to be kind of elevated to the surface right here. Then it's going to be picked up and dropped, and it's going to go down into a hole. All right. So let's just go ahead and do that. I probably want it to be in this position by frame 20, so I'm just gonna select the control that I have on my box here and click on S so I can have a keyframe for that position. At frame 10, I probably want it to be somewhere underneath here. Okay. Now keep in mind that I'm also probably going to create some sort of background for this scene, so you're not going to be able to see that the box is down there at this point. So it's just going to be elevated at this point, and then it's going to be grabbed here. Alright. And when it's let go by the box here, it's pretty much just going to drop in a hole. Let's say at 95 it's just going to kind of drop like this. Alright, so this is how so basically again, if I have some sort of background here, and allow me just to kind of fill this up with some sort of plane here. Okay, and again, this can be any sort of background that you have designed for your own scene. And again, let's just make this into maybe a little bit of a room here. I'm just going to select these edges right here and extrude them up. Alright, so we have a little bit of a room here. Okay, so let's say this is the camera that I'm setting up. Now, if I go to the beginning of my animation, there isn't going to be anything here. If I go to the end, there isn't going to be anything. So therefore, just by doing this, I just make sure that my footage is actually loopable. So it's going to basically end the same way it begins. So every time it's just going to look like loopable footage. Alright, so let's just again add a couple more details to our animation here. Alright. So one of the things that I wanted to animate was the thickness of my pipe here. Okay, just to make it look like it opens. You know, maybe the box is brought up for some sort of elevator or something. It doesn't really matter. So let's say that and again, I'm not gonna press S on this specific on the whole thing, so it sets keyframes for everything. Since I'm just gonna be animating the thickness of it, I'm actually just gonna be creating keyframes by right-clicking on this specific attribute and just clicking on key selected. All right. So now only that attribute has the keyframe and nothing else. Now another thing again that I'm going to be doing here is keeping my auto key on, so any changes that I make are going to be automatic. Alright, so let's say that at the beginning we actually want this to be close. So again, I could just take this keyframe right here, copy it, come here and paste it. Alright, then around frame 5 is probably going to open up something like this. And again, this original cylinder that I had there, I can probably get rid of that. I don't need it at this point. Okay, so it's going to start close. Alright, then at this point it's just kind of going to open up, and I need it to stay open up. Let me just move this up a little bit. I need it to stay open till the point that the box already up here. So and again, this thickness might be a little bit something like that. I can just copy this keyframe, and again we're doing this so it kind of holds that position until we're already at this point. So I probably want to make sure that it kind of closes a little bit further up this way, and at this point I'm just going to paste that other keyframe. So it's going to be something along the lines of this, and I could probably close that a little bit slower. Maybe give it 10 frames to do that. Okay. And then at the other side, I want to animate the thickness so it opens up and let us drop the box through as the claw kind of lets go of it. Alright, so somewhere around 88 here, I'm going to go into here. I want to set a keyframe. Okay, so this stays at this thickness, and again I'm just going to kind of reference back at what thickness this stays open, and it's a 0.8, so I probably just want to copy that amount here. And again, notice that you're not going to see the keyframes that we're setting up for this unless we actually select the input itself. As you can see, there is no keyframes here, but if I click on the polypipe, you are going to see the keyframes popping up. Alright, so if you're not seeing it, it's because of that reason. Let's see, I'm probably going to have to move this keyframe back a bit so it makes a little more sense to be open by the time it gets there. So then around here, it's already going to be open, so then we're going to change this to 0.8. Alright, and again I gotta get rid of that other cylinder that's there, and then it's gonna drop through the hole. So at this point then we need to set a couple more keyframes here just to make sure it closes, so it looks like the way it looks at the beginning, which is closed. So it drops it. Then let's just say around here I'm going to make another keyframe, just a copy of this one so it looks like it's open. Then we're going to go 5 to 10 frames forward and copy this one and paste it right there. And I should probably give this a little bit better timing here as well, so I'm just going to move this keyframe back. Alright, so if we play our animation, again it opens up, brings up the box, drops it, alright, and go back and creates a cyclable looped sequence. Alright, and again this is something that you want to kind of think about before you kind of start an assignment like this, but it's important that if you're trying to create loopable footage, the first frame looks the same as the last. If you see any sort of jumping or any sort of flicking or something like this in your footage, it's not correct. Okay. So and again, this wasn't really that difficult. So hopefully this was helpful to help you understand basically how would you go about creating loopable footage. And again, the idea is to make sure that the first frame ends. The last frame ends just like the first. That way, it's just going to be cyclical. Okay, great. Alright, this concludes this lesson.